And we are live in our 156th episode of UmbraCoffee, Christmas edition.
Final of 2020, this absolutely horror, this horror of the year. It's our final UmbraCoffee.
Yeah, and we are joined by Filip, straight from Umbraco HQ. Hi, Filip, and how are you?
Hi, nice.
End of the year.
Yeah, nice to be here. I've been looking forward to it. It'll be fun. I'm good today. I think I was just I just got an app launched yesterday saying that I was close to someone who tested positive. So I did another test yesterday, and I'm still awaiting the results. But hopefully I'm fine.
Hopefully
but it does kind of underline how the last couple of months have been like. It's just chaos everywhere.
Yeah.
The fact that really one notification can ruin your entire week. Or
yeah, exactly.
But really, we are all waiting this year to be ended.
Yeah.
Cool. And that wasn't that bad year in terms of tech stuff related and Umbraco related, because a lot of things happened, and we'll be probably also discussing that. But we are observing all of the efforts and actions in last days, and December is really magical in our area. So maybe let's start from discussing the articles which were released this week. And I must fully admit that I didn't read any of these. I was not completely following them. I have them all added to my list.
Had a bit of a busy week, Marcin. It's okay.
Yes, a little bit, but yeah, I was not following that. So I can just share my screen, and guys, if you read and followed some of them and do you have your personal highlights, just talk. Let's talk through them, because even speaking from titles, that was really an amazing impact.
What did we miss? What did we miss from last weekend? So of course we would have talked last week about was it the integrations one was on the Friday by Mario. That was a cool one. But there was
What was your one? Was that Sunday or Monday? Or
I think that was Monday. So I did one on code reviews on Monday. The CanCon team did one on the 12th about kind of their podcast and how it's actually in this difficult year has kind of brought them together, which I think is really nice.
That was the one which I read, and that was a great story, because it also shows how much effort is required to run anything what is kind of periodical and regular, and also how this great team stepped outside of the Umbraco discussions and also touched various other topics which are very close to our development and not only development lives. And yeah, so the great story from the Candid Contributions team. Yeah, Callum, can you confirm? Oh, your was on 14th. And
yeah, mine was on the 14th. There was a great article by Matthew Hart. Matthew Hart's done some fantastic stuff with IIS PowerShell scripts to get stuff up and running, and he's showing off his Visual Studio extension type thing, which is I know a lot of people find very helpful. There was one of my favorites, actually. I will say my favorite.
Which one?
From this week was the one about UMarketing Suite on the 16th. And we all know, I've been very honest about this, I have a massive dev crush on that team. They do really awesome work, really awesome work. But the story of how UMarketing Suite kind of came about from discussions in 2017 all the way up to, I think it was April this year when it launched on a webinar and everyone was at home. I'm sure they would have hoped it could be grander. But yeah, that was a really nice story. And I've not seen today's, but demystifying config in .NET Core sounds really cool, because it's definitely going to be something topical for the next year or so.
Yes. And it's also coming from Emma, who is a team member in .NET Core team. So it's probably relates to all the .NET Core work being done by the team in there.
Just one of those areas where we talked about this trade-off, where do we want to do what's native and what kind of feels like Umbraco, or do we want to take the road that's best practicey, or like how it's done in .NET Core, right? And config is one of the ones where we actually opted for the .NET Core way, or the .NET Core approach. So I think this is a really great blog post. Like she really holds your hand all the way through and talks you through why and what and how it's going to look like. I mean,
because it is a bit of a paradigm shift from what we've been used to. And I wrote an article in Script maybe 18 months ago when everyone was getting very freaked out by dependency injection in Umbraco 8, going, well, I previously had a config file, but now I've got to configure in code. What is all of this? What's configuration as code? And it definitely, it shook a few people. And I think we've, 18 months later, people are starting to get it. And then .NET Core is going to come along.
We change it again. Yeah.
But very much aligning with kind of Microsoft's way of doing things, as you mentioned.
Yeah. And if I can point to the QA one, I think it was on the 13th or something. I think that was a pretty good read as well. I mean, QA is dear to my heart. I think it's one of the areas where I want to improve what we do with Umbraco even more, and make sure that our releases are more thoroughly tested. And I think it was just a nice angle of looking at how a QA would write user stories and make sure that they're actually the accept criteria makes sense for developers and stuff. I think that was a good read as well.
The thing about QA is I think everyone's life has been made miserable by a QA person at some point. And I think as a result, we will, people hear the word QA and they shudder a little bit. But there was a fantastic talk at the Glasgow meetup the other day where someone shared their perspective of kind of a more collaborative QA approach, and how it's not a battle; it's just about trying to get the best product. And that's it's a great point. I think we should be more aware of maybe some of the QA practices, the goals that people have out of testing. It's not there to how I like teasing developers that they've got bugs. No,
it's not a blame culture or blame passing task between the teams. And I think that this change also changed a lot of in our team. When we started to include QA people in all the planning and discussions, all the processes, and listen to them, and they were listening to us. So it's not like just, okay, we've done something, you are testing something, but it's a collaborative approach to have results which are really well tested in this case. So that's really, really great point of view. And I need to catch up on this article as well. Coming back to Christmas quickly, because we want to talk about things in 2020 and of course plans for the next year. But we were also seeing some Christmas gifts being delivered this week, and one of them was a really, really nice and worth highlighting, and that's puzzles again for Lee.
Unreal. So this is this Co-Garden 2020 photo that
mashup
that Lars started, and kind of the Candid Contributions hackathon. Everyone contributed. Everyone's in this photo, and it's a 500-piece puzzle now, which is impressive. I know Lee loves his puzzles. Did we find out who? Did we find out who this is from? Who's Lee's Santa? I know a few people were speculating that it was Lottie.
I don't know. Probably it wasn't revealed, but there was a lot of discussions about the privacy policy, licensing of the photos. That was really fun and great. But yeah, we knew that Lee loves puzzles, and if it will be ever revealed, that's a big kudos and big high five for someone who just put it all together. I was not even expecting that I will be on any puzzles. And it looks like we are all there.
That is a weird thought that we are there on a sofa on a puzzle, Marcin.
That's you never know, and that's how the development life looks like, right? We can end up on the puzzles sitting on a sofa. Yeah, that's life.
You've made it. You've made it. I was going to say there was one more bit of festive cheer which I saw, and I just put it in the chat, Marcin. This was shared by Jeffrey. Again, I've spoken about Jeffrey already today, but this made me really smile. He and his colleague went round to all of the team and delivered them Christmas presents to their house. And this is Jeffrey dressed as Santa, riding the top of a Mercedes, delivering presents to all of the Plex team. It's truly a sight to see. And of course, we'll link the link down below.
Yeah. The link is still loading on my 4G connection, so hopefully it will load. But I also like Christmas for this kind of actions, because we can see how companies are working together, are spending this time together, and how much efforts are put into the team building. And maybe this year was also different because we were all spread remote. We couldn't celebrate in the offices, so it was a really nice challenge. And from what you've said, the Perplex team did the challenge, completed very well for all the companies to make some smiles on people's faces at the end of this.
I know that Umbraco HQ, you would traditionally have a like a get together in person, and Warren would fly over. All the remote people would come to the office, and I think today's your substitute.
We split it into two, so it was supposed to be last Friday, and normally the day is like half a day, which is where there's actually content, and we share from one department to the other what we've been working on and all that stuff. And there's some nice talks, and then the rest of the day is opening Christmas presents and having fun and drinking a Christmas beer and all that stuff. So we split it into two. So I think the afternoon part actually starts in a little bit and is moved to today, but the company day with the talks were actually last week. But so we normally then after that we go out and have a nice dinner together, and of course that was all canceled as well. So actually we're delivering the dinners to everybody along with wine and everything. So that's, I think Matthias is actually swinging by my house at this minute or something. But because of the Corona thing, like he's just setting it outside, so I don't even get to say hi to him. But
he doesn't set the table for you, or
he should, but yeah.
Come back and do the washing up later. That's good to see companies finding inventive ways to still stay close and celebrate the end of the year. It's been a tough year for everyone.
It is.
But to be fair, don't say that. Let's test this other ways next year. We don't want this next year. We want normality. Yes.
Yeah.
Did Jeffrey's video load, Marcin? It's worth sharing if it's loaded.
Let's
all your bandwidth on streaming. Yeah.
There's a
video. I don't know if we'll be hearing audio or not.
You don't need to hear him. It's just there's quite a funny moment in the actual video where he's like standing out the sunroof of this Mercedes, and then the Mercedes speeds up, and he kind of
okay. That's the video.
This one. Maybe. Typical. That's really good. Anyway, it's nice to see people celebrating in a variety of different ways. And of course,
maybe call to action, Callum. Call to action. Yeah. If any companies, if any teams did something crazy this year, just share it with us. Share it with us here on channel, and if we will be able to share it, maybe at the end of the episode, we'll highlight some of the crazy ideas.
Yeah, and of course, you've asked people in the chat to share their memories of their favorite moments of 2020. Let's keep it positive. Let's talk about some of the good things. But mine is still to this day the April Fool's episode we did, Marcin. I laugh about it all the time.
Filip, if you didn't see that, just as a kind of humor exchange, feel free to watch it. It's still on YouTube.
We did an entire UmbraCoffee episode that was just fake news, and it took a good 10 or 15 minutes for people to realize. For some people got it straight away, and then when I started cracking up at the end, I just couldn't take it. Marcin made some jokes about jQuery, and I was done. Anyway, but people in the chat are sharing their memories of 2020. Just pretend meetups online and meet people that you wouldn't normally get to meet. Yeah. Totally agree. Ravi's saying kind of similar. The online collaboration has been great. He did a good pub quiz a few weeks back as well. Loads of great things. Keep sharing, and we'll share them as we go.
Yeah, and Filip, let's speak then about yours. You've joined the HQ this year. How you would summarize this 2020 for you? Well,
2020 was a lot different from what everybody expected, right? But I actually started talking to HQ already in January. So this has been a year where I've been thinking a lot about Umbraco, and I joined, in the summer, and now it's been like 6 months or whatever, and it's been a lot of fun. I really liked it. Thankfully, like Denmark opened up enough over the summer that I actually could go to the office for the first, I think, almost 2 months or something. So I got to meet everybody and have the coffee machine talk, and sit with people at lunch, and actually get to know people around HQ. Like, I mean, starting now would that would be tough, right? I mean, starting in a company with 70 people now or something like that, and not meeting anybody in real life, that would be hard.
We had Shanice on a couple of weeks back, and she said that her second day, or the day she started, was the day that everything went into lockdown. So she started introductions, and everyone worked from home now. That's tough.
That is a tough one. Yeah. But I think HQ is a fantastic place to work. I mean, when you like Umbraco, of course, it's cool, but also just as a workplace, it's a nice place, and people look after each other, and there's a good mood and spirit around the office, and I really enjoy it.
That's great. And of course, you weren't completely unfamiliar with Umbraco and the community before this. You've spoken at Code Garden. You've worked in agencies that use Umbraco. So it's not like this is your first introduction. You're being welcomed.
Of course, that helped a little bit as well. Yeah. I actually went to the I think it was like the housewarming party of HQ, like in the engine facilities or wherever it is now, right? Where there was an all Campari bar. Like, they hired pro bartenders, and all they served were Campari. And like, I just remember, I think that was my first party without Umbraco, and I was just like, this is too weird. Like, I hate Campari. I mean,
But that was the good year, and of course, from the technical side, it was also an evolution, some revolutions inside of Umbraco, and maybe let's also transfer to this topic, because today there was a product update shared by Rune, as every. Yeah, very long one, but also highlighting a lot of great stuff. So a new release of Umbraco Deploy, some upcoming releases around single sign-on and Umbraco 8.10. And maybe we can stop here, because that was also announced that this release was meant to be a Christmas present, but because of one issue or some critical issue, it was postponed, and it will be a New Year's surprise.
Yeah, we will launch it on December 28th, and I mean, I was bummed out because, of course, like, we just announced this thing where we want to release every at the end of every cycle, and then the first cycle after that, we don't meet the deadline. But I mean, part of what we want to achieve is, to be, reliable, that people can count on us. And I mean, the most important part of that is that we don't release something if we know it's broken. And I mean, there
was something I was thinking about this. So kind of part of me goes, you've been committing to every 6 weeks you're going to do a release, and the date has been widely publicized, and then the fact that on the day you pull the plug, it's annoying. But at the same time, you're doing it because it's not right. And I think the old Umbraco would have done it and gone, we can put a 0.1 out. This time we can fix it up. There's been very, very few 0.1 like bug patch releases on day one or shortly after. And equally, I think the Umbraco of the past would have announced a release date and then just said nothing when that date wasn't going to happen. It is credit to you that, okay, you're sticking to the date. Those are the intention, but if it's not going to happen, you communicate it. People have always said that one of the big things with one of the big issues has been communication, and it seems, at least with the products and releases, that's become a lot better this year.
Koma is really doing a fantastic job. So the communications department, right? So Rune and Vera and the people over there, they do a fantastic job.
Have we actually spoken about this at all? Because so Rune, the people that may not know, Rune is actually part of the Koma team now. Of course, there was discussions when you came on. Why do we need a product owner and a product or program manager for CMS? What's the difference? And Rune's moved more towards like a product marketing role, where it's all about communicating the plans and the intentions, which is amazing. And I think when everyone was saying they wanted a product owner, that's actually what we wanted. We wanted someone we could go to and ask questions about, hey, what's the plans with this? And they can be communicated cohesively.
Yeah. But also, Callum, on that we can just admit that the communication is very important, and even in all the teams which we are working in is like without proper communication, without communicating failures as well, which is the hardest part probably of our work as well, is like it doesn't work. If there is a fail, just speak about it, just admit it. No one is just hiding anything under the blanket, and that's great that you've divided those roles right now, and we have really amazing and improved both communication and also management over the product and products. So that's
it gives you confidence for the stuff that's coming, because of course there's going to be a whole bunch of big changes coming in 2021, and this this improved communication, the more predictable release cycle is definitely going to help. And I would say, as I said a few times on UmbraCoffee, you've now got a track record of releases being pretty good first time round. There was always this expectation that I'll wait a couple weeks.
Don't go for the zero. Yeah.
I'm upgrading on launch day now, and have very few issues every time. They're generally very solid releases. And when we look at the kind of things we've had over the past even 6 months, the block editor, authentication improvements, all kind of released relatively without hitch. And I like that they've been divided into almost themed releases. You've got the block release, you've got the authentication release, you've got the compression release, which will come at some point. You've got UX improvements in 8.6, I think it was. It's great to see that things being compartmentalized a bit.
Yeah. I just did the math, or rather, Sebastian did the math, and we released 35 releases in 2020. So lots of
CMS.
Yeah, for CMS.
Wow.
No, nice.
That's more than one every 2 weeks.
Yeah, it is. Well, it is counting 5 RCs, so 30 if you don't count them. But it's still more than 2.
I guess a couple of V7 15 updates.
Yeah.
Nice.
Yeah, so those are all patches for everything.
That's an impressive cadence. That's a really impressive cadence.
Yeah, and also, as you've said, Callum, there's a lot of things upcoming, and we can talk about it after a while. But maybe let's talk about some releases from this week, and then we can jump on some plans and future. Some of you already mentioned. I had a personal release yesterday, but to be honest, it was one of those not too many delivered on time. So without postponing this release, without bugs. Everything is fine. We are fine, and thank you all for your congrats and stuff. As you can see me now here, I'm not there because thanks to the corona, there are no visitations in the hospitals. So I'm picking up girls tomorrow from the hospital.
So you've still not met your new daughter?
No,
wow.
I didn't. I've seen her on Messenger only, and we waved to each other today in the morning through the window, because I'm not able to visit my wife and my new daughter.
That's a very 2020.
Yeah. But as a highlight, we had some, as you can see, some really cool and good stuff coming this year. So we are just admitting to the situation. It was crazy, and to be honest, it was really crazy to await a child and be under the control and stuff like that during this year. So big shout out and high five for everyone who had their babies this year or will still have, because it's not really easy this time. So but I'm right now very happy that it's released. So we are going to today is my last day of work this year as well. So I'm really going out and undigitalize myself to the end of the year. So if anyone will need something from me, probably it needs to await till January 7th or something like that.
Anthony in the chat saying, Marcin, you didn't do anything for the release. You handed it over to the DevOps team. It's true. We should be congratulating your wife. She's done all the work.
Yes, that's the truth. But I'm just good in delegating stuff recently. So I'm getting better and better. Let's keep it up.
It's kind of a slow release pipeline, right? Yeah.
You've got pressure from the project managers to get it done quicker, Marcin. Can you ask your wife to speed up?
It was really well planned release, to be honest. But that's that. Let's speak about product releases related to Umbraco a little bit more. because Kevin Jump also used to release very solid, very consistent, very regular releases for his product. And one of these is using complete 8.9 release candidate. And it looks crazy. I don't have words again to just describe what is going on inside of this, but side to side, side by side views, preview of the changes, and some other crazy stuff being released in this release candidate. Just amazing
So
work.
cool.
And
Lots of cool
yeah.
stuff in there. Yeah.
The side by side preview thing is unreal. Like every single release, he blows my mind.
Yeah. So yeah, everyone can check the blog posts shared by Kevin, and we will also link it up under the video after the episode. Check it out, install it, play it. If you haven't checked the using complete package yet, just do it. It's just does the job. It's amazing. We've been using it in some of the projects recently. It is amazing. Just check it out. And second thing, which is also package related, and it's closer to package creators and package teams, is this amazing piece, which was highlighted also in the product update. It's called UI examples. And Filip, maybe you can tell us more about it, because probably I think you've been also following some of these upgrades from your side.
To be honest, this is a lot of work from Jesper and the package team.
Jesper,
But it is really cool to see, examples that are really easy to use of how UI stuff can be built in the back office today. Without spoiling too much, I think this goes a long way of showing kind of the things that we want to do with the back office in the future, right?
The thing I love here is, so I did a few streams for Hacktoberfest, and I did quite a lot in the Umbraco back office. It was of interest to me because I think it's pretty poorly documented. There's the Angular UI, the auto-generated UI docs, and they're fine. But
also, Callum, on this note, it's worth highlighting Kevin Jump again for the amazing work of this IntelliSense
this release, this package UI example screams of Kevin as well. I'm sure he's had a lot of involvement in it. But what I was going to say is the documentation is fine to show you here's what it can do, or here's theoretically what it can do. But whether that happens in practice is another question. An actual living, breathing documentation like this is far better, far more usable, because you can, use it as a reference point, go visually, that's exactly what I want. And you know it's going to work because the code's there and it's working. You don't have to piece together some bits of docs that may or may not be may not be right.
Yeah. It's really cool.
It's very cool.
So
they got it out fast. This was more or less an idea from the community day in November, and they got it fleshed out. And I know Jesper was working really late last night to get it out, but it's out now and it's really cool. So lots of congratulations to him and the team. It was a great effort.
Yeah, that's great. And we can jump on the future then. Because we have some things to be shared. You didn't want to spoil anything, Filip, but maybe you want to do something and spoil something at the beginning of this section.
Yes. So in the product update today as well, we announced that we will be releasing a RFC for the future of back office. Ooh. And I'm actually going to press the button in just a minute or two here live on the stream. But before that, I thought, if it's okay, that I could just spend 5 minutes or probably, talking about the reasons why and what we're thinking, and more or less just talk through the RFC. I'm not going to read it out and stuff, but just give you kind of.
I think that's a good idea, because this has been this topic, the back office. What do we do with the back office? What do we do with Angular? Has been a conversation for as long as 3-4 years at least, if not more. I know Pete has been bashing the TypeScript drum forever. I know people have a preference for React or Vue or Angular, more than one. So there's a whole bunch of stuff there, and as has always been the case, it's got the scope to go way overboard very quickly with people's opinions. So I'm sure, as people have said before, this whole process is about trying to stay grounded and focused on some set goals and what you're trying to achieve. And maybe you can share about that. What's the plan?
Absolutely. So well, of course, as you said, like we knew and we've known for years that this was something that we had to tackle eventually. And there was even an RFC at Code Garden 19, like with a lot of like initial ideas and a lot of the pain points that we feel today are actually described really well in that RFC. But the RFC kind of never got anywhere. Like there was a lot of discussion, and then it kind of just died out, and it was hard to figure out where to go from there. So what I'll be releasing today is actually an RFC that describes more like the process of where we want to go and how we want to go there. And then there's going to be individual RFCs for like the points in the process. But let me step back and just start by sharing like my analysis of the root problem, or like how I see back office. I'll try to not make it too long, but otherwise you can stop me, right? So I think of back office kind of like it has 3 layers, so you can think of it in 3 layers. So on top there's like the UI layer, which is everything that users interact with, like buttons and drop downs, and I might even say tabs, right? And those are today, they're all AngularJS directives. Some of them are components, but they're the same thing more or less. And those are the ones that are in that package that the package team released. And I mean, a lot of work has gone into these components. They're really well done. Especially the accessibility team has really put a lot of work into them, and they're really well done. But then, as you say, like documentation is kind of like it's automated, and it doesn't really cover everything too well. And then there's some components that are described a little more somewhere else, and like that's probably out of sync because it's not automated. And then then there's the community thing that we talked about, umbraChristmas or whatever, that can help you kind of your editor know a little bit about the components and stuff. But that's also kind of a manual process because you can't know for sure because it's AngularJS and it's old technology, right? Mm-hmm. And we want to kind of take that to a better place. But I'll come back to the solution in a minute. But like, I mean, other than that, I think it's worth noting that the components today, they can only be used inside of the back office, which means that I remember like at Brookfest, UCommerce showed off their new super cool back office thing, but it was actually built in Vue.js, which means that like all the directives, like for buttons and stuff, if they wanted to have that Umbraco feel that we want that packages have, like they had to re-implement all of it themselves. And of course, it goes for our own products as well. Like if we want to have a nice Umbraco button in the cloud portal or in the shop or somewhere, like we have to recreate it. And that means if we find a bug somewhere, it's not fixed the other places and all that stuff. So like we want to take all of this and make it easier to make consistent user experiences across packages and like back office and other products, and no matter the technology, right? So that's the UI layer. Then there's the API layer, and I mean the API layer, you can think of it as how you interact with Umbraco. And today it's a little bit messed up with how you actually implement like a property editor or a dashboard. Those two are kind of smashed together a little bit, and in my opinion, that's a little bit of a mess. And we want to cut that cord between how you build your component and how the API really works. But like, I mean, if you look at the API, it's kind of okay. It's the official API are the ones that are that are doxed, and it's nice, but that's a little too narrow. And then if you want to customize Umbraco more than that, you gotta like reach into the implementation of back office. So back office is written in AngularJS, and that means that it kind of feels like it's Umbraco's API that you can just go scope parent, and read some kind of property up on something else to get a value that you would like. But that's not really the API. Like that's I mean, there's some really creative hacks out there for when you want to put somewhere, when you want to put a button somewhere that's not really supposed to be a button, like do an HTTP interceptor and change the template, and like there's so much creativity out there, and it's super cool. But I mean, that is kind of what makes it really hard to continue to evaluate, or like to move on with back office, because like it's really hard to know what we can change because people can be using anything. I mean, it's really hard to then, you know, how when the code base grows, like you refactor, and you can't really do that too much with back office today because we have no idea what people are using and how they're using it.
Yeah.
I mean, it's even come to a place now that there's an exception for what we consider a breaking change for back office, right? So if it's just back office, we don't consider it a breaking change.
I saw the rules are if it's documented.
Yeah, it's not breaking.
Don't document anything, and then nothing's a breaking change. Brilliant.
Exactly.
That's like we want to get that to a better place as well. So that's the API layer, the middle layer, right? And then underneath that, that's the implementation, which is, you know, all the plumbing, all the wiring. You know, what happens when you click the save button? It runs the validation and sends an HTTP request, and then the server fails and it shows an error, and you know, all that, you know, logic. And of course, that's the biggest part of the application, right? But you know, it's really the part of the application that's only really relevant for people who contribute or for people who work at HQ, because for the rest of us, I mean, this is just an application that we use. And you know, this was started back when Grunt and Gulp was the cool thing, right? So this is an old code base, and it is, as I said, because it's hard to refactor, it is a little bit messy. And that means that the development experience is not too perfect, and it's kind of slow to build, and you know, it's not what you expect from a modern front-end application. And of course, I mean, I said already, it's AngularJS, and AngularJS, they announced, even though they gave us an extra 6 months now with Corona, it's still being end of life.
How many times has that been extended? Because there was like, oh, Angular 1.6 is going to be the last one, and then we had 1.7, and then we got 1.8, and now it's like, okay, an extra 6 months.
Yeah, but I mean, even if AngularJS would have support forever, like we would still do this project. Because I mean, we need the API to get to a better place. Like, I mean, we call ourselves the friendly CMS, but today, if you want to, you know, make a property editor or something, you gotta know how Angular does dirty checking and what thing to bind to and where, and you know, you kind of have to know more or less how AngularJS works in order to do that, and that's not very friendly. Like, especially like, I mean, back in 2013, it was great because everybody wanted to learn AngularJS, but now it's like I have to learn something like I'm realistically not going to use it for anything that's not Umbraco.
That's a really interesting point, because I think the core concepts of the stuff that we would class as part of a component, dependency injection in the back office, you've got, as you say, like model binding and dirty checking of values. All of that is now kind of framework agnostic. You don't need all of that stuff. The routing and the request pipeline that you mentioned, again, yeah, I agree. That's not really a concern for us as implementers. I see so often people saying, I'd love to contribute to Umbraco, I'd love to do a package, but I don't know Angular. And in reality, Angular, the writing your code is just JavaScript, but it is all of the bits around it that you do need to know, like what is scope, what is you know, what is how do I use the dependency injection, how do I register new components, all of that sort of stuff. So if we can standardize that, I like that idea. And I also like the idea that you've mentioned or kind of touched on, is moving this conversation away from Angular's the problem and to actually, we just want to make it easier to contribute to the back office and make it pluggable for anyone. So it almost takes that framework out of the equation. How do we make a component or a plugin or a package as simple as possible? How do we make it easy to override things in the most minimal, less intrusive way?
And that's really what we want. So those are the 3 layers, right? And then, of course, my solution, or the solution that we're proposing, is that we have a plan for each layer, and we're going to do them like in steps, so that over time we will see things get better, but we won't have a new back office until we're done with part 3. So part 1 is building a UI library. This will help us actually get the UI to a place where it's framework agnostic. You can use it outside of Umbraco, and it's easy to use. And of course, with modern tools today, we get documentation and TypeScript support and all that. We get that out of the box. with a modern framework today, and we really want that. We think that's going to make it a lot easier to work with Umbraco and a lot more safe, so that if you choose to use TypeScript, you can actually have a build that fails if you're misusing a component or something. And I think that's a real strength of doing this. And of course, we'll coordinate with the accessibility team and make sure that all the work that they put in is not just lost, but we'll take it over. And well, there's going to be an RFC for this part, so I don't want to dive too much into the specifics. But what we're looking at is like automated accessibility testing and stuff for all the components, so that we'll make sure that they at least meet like a minimum requirement for everything before it's even built, right?
And when we're talking here about defining components, we're not saying you're going to go and redesign every element of the CMS. You're talking about trying to actually define the boundaries of what already exists in the CMS and say, this is a button. And you can do an accessibility piece on buttons,
Exactly.
and isolating it. I know currently there's a lot of stuff in core still that's not componentized. So I guess this would be trying to strictly define.
And hopefully we can actually even ship some of these components along with the current back office, so that package authors and stuff can, and other developers can try using them and kind of get familiar to how they work, so that once they have to do the migration to the new back office implementation, they're already going to be familiar with how you work with the new components. So we hope that will even ease into whatever will eventually be a migration, right? So we think this is a new standalone open source project that lives on GitHub. It's distributed on NPM. We've looked a lot of course, at Google has the material design web components. Adobe has a very similar project called Spectrum components, and both of them are like automatically documented and written with TypeScript, and very well supported, and like they have a different approaches to stuff, and we're not exactly sure what we're proposing yet. That's why it's not in this RFC, right? But we're looking at something like that. So if you want to kind of see what this could be like, go Google one of those, and you'll have maybe an idea. So that's the first step.
And I think
Yeah, go ahead.
Marcin's really acing.
I'm totally acing. I'm just listening to your voices from the behind my head. But I wanted to say that the voices are very important here, and that's why this whole process is kicking in, because we've seen a lot of great highlights, and people are working with different tools, and that's the beauty of our let's say community, because we are using various tools. You've mentioned Google and Adobe. There are some inputs on other teams, and some even documentations of stuff being used by front-end teams and back-end teams as well. And if we can highlight that and gather it in one place to then discuss what works for all of us the most, because there is no one answer to everything yet, and there is a new framework every day. But yeah, that would be great, and great to see what other people are using and what are the good examples, not best examples. What are the good examples highlighted by the community?
Yeah. Absolutely. So yeah, maybe we can talk about like what we think the RFC process will be like, and we can talk about that maybe afterwards. I'm almost done. Well, then of course there's like the API layer, and what we want to do here. I mentioned some issues with that, and we want to get that to a better place. But the first step is trying to figure out like what do we want this API to be like. Part 2 is called defining an API, or defining an API concept, or something like that. And it is around like we need to figure out like all the stuff that how do you open a model, and how do you update a value, and all that stuff. And do we go for something that's like service kind of ish, like we know today, or are we looking at a kind of a state Redux kind of thing that you can subscribe to, or like, and all of this has to be figured out, right? So like part 2 is trying to define what would this look like. We're probably going to do some prototypes and see what works and what feels nice, and how is this. Like in my head, it would be cool if, when you wanted to make a property editor, you just made a class that extended from some Umbraco-based property editor or something like that, which magically gave you some properties that if you bound to them, they would be automatically updated, and kind of like the feeling that we get from a AngularJS thing today, just not based on any framework, but based on web standards. So we know they will never change, they will never be out of sync, and they will work with any framework. So, and the point is that we make all of these calls before we even select how to implement back office. And that's the reason why we do it in that order, is that we want to make sure that this API doesn't know what framework is beneath it. Because we want an API that doesn't have that limitation, so that you don't have to understand AngularJS or understand Vue.js or React or whatever to be able to build something with Umbraco. Yeah, so was that a question?
We can probably follow that and continue with the RFC, but I wanted to also mention one thing, and I really like that you've mentioned thing that it not cost that much at this stage to make some different decisions. And I fell in love in even storming technique recently, and that's exactly the beauty of decisions making before starting to write code. It's not to rewrite everything, but just to avoid mistakes when writing code. And if it costs right now one comment, one decision, one meeting, one, I don't know, discussion, that's where it should happen. And then just let's go with something. And that's what we are doing also in our teams recently, is just avoiding stupid waste of time when coding something what might be changed quickly and later, and it can be avoided. Just that's the beauty. So yeah, what do you want to release then, Filip?
Yeah, so well, I should just talk about the last one. So implementing back office is the last part. So actually rewriting back office, it's a huge task. It's going to take a while. It's not just a migration, it is a rewrite of back office. We want it to be, easier to test, more flexible to work on, faster to build, all the stuff that I said already. But like how we build that shouldn't really matter. I've said that a million times already. Like it shouldn't matter to people but people who develop on Umbraco or people who build a package, or like they shouldn't care how back office is implemented. So whenever we want to talk about Vue.js or Tailwind or all the frameworks that are really hot in the Umbraco community, like this is where that discussion belongs, and it's only really relevant for the people who actually contribute to the code. So I just wanted to point that out, because like the one thing I don't want from this RFC is to have another framework war about whether we should use React or Vue, right? Like we really don't want that discussion now. We will have that eventually when we go to part 3 about re-implementing back office.
Those battles are inevitable. They're going to happen. Someone's not going to read the RFC at all and just going to go straight to the bottom and go Vue. And that's fine. People will do that. But I do appreciate this. I do appreciate this kind of structured, thought out approach to, we're building a system. We're not just implementing something. We're not just building an application that runs on
new framework.
We're building a system, and it's a set of APIs that third parties will plug into. So it needs to be, supported and documented and whatever.
And that's really the point. So there's some more information in the RFC. And if I share my screen now, you see that we actually prepared this, and there's a branch now on the RFC's repository on Umbraco and on GitHub. And now I'll click the new pull request button, and hopefully we should see all of this just working. Well, normally I would fill this in, but I'm sure Rune is following along and will write a proper description here afterwards. So for now, I'll just click the button so that the pull request is now out, and it's able to merge. And Rune will probably make the link here, but the link is going to go to the description, of course, of the actual RFC. So once this is over, go read the RFC. Comment on it. Like, we really want your feedback, especially on like there are some open endings, like in terms of what do we do with like if technology is up to the developer, like how do we not get to a place where there's 5 views and 3 Reacts in the back office at the same time. Like there's scenarios that we have to cover, and I mean we have some ideas, but like maybe our ideas are not good enough, and we'll have to work on it. Like this is a collaborative process where this is a proposal. You bring us all your feedback, we will evaluate it over time. We will probably make some changes, and once we're satisfied, then we'll close it. And then there's going to be a new RFC, as I said, for the first part, assuming that we don't discard everything. But I hope we will go with at least parts of it, right? And we hope to get that out in the beginning of next year. So we actually have started prototyping a little bit on some components, and I must say it feels really nice to work with, and it's cool to see some of this finally, in our hands, and yeah, we're really excited about it.
Very cool.
So I think it's a good time because a lot of people are making New Year's summaries and some plans for the New Year's. A lot of people are spending time just thinking more these days, and I think that's a great intro to make some notes of this thinking, maybe about Umbraco back office in general. And so the general call to action is share your thoughts, and everyone has them. Everyone was talking and also discussing a lot of changes. So let's put them there and discuss them in this point. And I still have a personal note to call to action to follow more RFCs, to be more involved.
Have a read of the RFC, get an understanding of the details, maybe ask some questions if you're not sure, and then share your feedback. Maybe think over the Christmas break about it. Exactly. Like I joke that people are going to go on there and just write view, but it's true. Like the most valuable contributions to the RFC process will be the most thought out and kind of considered opinions. Take a step back, look at the bigger picture as well.
Yeah. So what I want to say is, like, this RFC kind of just describes the process, as I was saying. Like, we want to split it into 3 parts, and these are the overall parts, and we kind of like we see that we take one at a time, and maybe the second one can start a little bit before the first one is over, and that kind of stuff. But the next RFCs, we intend to make them pretty concrete. So there's actually, there along with the RFC for the first one, there's gonna be a prototype that you can download and try. It's so all the technologies, like, we're gonna come with a proposal where everything is selected for you, so that then we can discuss whether one should be changed with something else and stuff. But like, we don't want it to be too broad. I think that's what we learned from the first RFC, that if it's not a clear proposal, then it's very hard to go anywhere from it. So we'll try that and see if that works. I mean, that's very much the Umbraco way, right? We change something, we try it. If it works, we stick with it. If it doesn't work, we'll try something else next time.
And it's a nice way for developers as well, code-minded people, to engage. They can, pull some code down, try it, and go, this API doesn't feel very friendly to me, or actually this is beautiful, fantastic, go for it. Or even smaller things, naming, whatever.
Yeah, exactly.
Well, so this is really exciting because, of course, like I said at the start, people have been after this for a long time. It's great to see it being kicked in the right direction. I know that you, obviously, with your background in JavaScript, this is going to be a huge driving force behind it as well, and it's fantastic to see that. The questions I've got, one, when? Like, what time frame? Of course, everyone's going to ask that.
Here's the deadline. I'll tell you right now. Yeah.
When is it going to be launched? Q1? But also, how do people get involved maybe beyond the RFC? Are we going to maybe see teams working around the back office going forward? Is there scope for the community to get involved?
Yes, that's an excellent question. As I said, like, we already have the accessibility team. Of course, we're going to involve them a lot, especially in the UI library, like part 1. We intend to make a new team, kind of like the Unicorn team, which is going to be a project team again. It's not so it's not an ongoing team, but a project team that works on this project. We intend to do that, but probably not until, like, I mean, maybe summertime or something. Whenever like we're probably at a place where the third part could, the RFC would be somewhere, and we could start, discussing it more specifically. So probably around there, I'd say maybe around Code Garden or something. We would do, and we would like gather a new team for that. I feel like I had something else I wanted to say. Well, I was
going to add, to be fair, there's some other big things in the pipeline that probably need to happen before that are maybe.
It's important for me to say that, like, the reason why we're starting this now, like, is that, for one, we know this is really important, and we know it's something we have to do, but also this does not take away focus from all the other stuff that we're doing. Like, the current top two priorities at HQ right now are the .NET Core migration and the Cloud vNext, and that's not going to change because of this. And I mean, these are separate people, or at least a lot of it are a different team. And we're actually bringing on another front-end developer from January to the team. I know that you'll be happy about it, but look out for the blog post in January. But so we are manning up a little bit on this exactly because we're not taking away focus from the current focus on HQ, which is the .NET Core migration and the cloud next.
I know a lot of people were up in arms kind of about breaking changes and saying, the net core release is the time to be doing breaking changes. And there's an element of truth to that because it's yet another big rewrite, and ultimately a new back office is going to be yet another big rewrite for package devs. We want to minimize it as much as possible, but actually getting that .NET Core release out and moving to the new release structure, semantic versioning as well, means that those bigger breaking changes can be managed in a much better way. So this is an exciting, next 2 years, I'd say, for over the first few major releases that we get from HQ. That will be really, really cool. So
whether we start from 1 or from 9 or from wherever, it's going to be really exciting to see the next, the next 3, 4, 5 majors. I think lots of cool stuff is going to happen.
Yeah, and so of course, net core, big focus next year. Bjarke has been sharing a load of updates, and I'm sure we'll get alphas, previews, whatever we want to call them in course.
It's this close to alpha 3 where we can actually start rendering stuff. Look forward to that January, I would say.
That's amazing.
Look for tweets from team members, because I've seen the team sharing a lot of insights there.
Actually, if I can just say one thing, in the product update today, I think Bjarke announced that from now there's gonna be nightlies available. Which means that if you want to try out the current state of routing, I think it's gonna be merged in. If not today, then the beginning of next week or something. So you can actually see how it's going to look like and what your template could be like, and you could actually have stuff rendered.
Having nightlies there is a big progress. I'm sure people will want to play with. Everyone wants to avoid their family at Christmas. I'm sure someone hide away and do some stuff. Maybe play with the .NET Core release. But that's fantastic. And the nightlies are going to be great for progressing. People, starting to play with the APIs, going, this doesn't feel right, or this is broken. Maybe a bit early for that. Experimenting with building stuff, saying how is this different, providing feedback to the .NET Core team. So that's a really good step too. You mentioned the cloud thing. Should we talk about that for a bit? I know it's not really your area, but it's certainly something that has piqued my interest, and I think we can all admit that cloud has had some shortfalls in the past year or two, largely down to the tech stack that it's running on it's on Azure Pack, which is long deprecated. It's I think Shannon said to me that the Azure Pack install that the infrastructure you're running is one of the biggest in the world, because no one else is using it anymore. At least that you're one of the biggest cloud customers in Denmark, and so there's a lot of weight that's gone behind that tech, but it's time to move on. And so it was announced that you're going to move over and use
services.
Platform as a service. So effectively delegating the responsibility of that infrastructure, where currently you're hosting VMs, you're now moving on to managed infrastructure. And that's coming next year. And this unlocks a whole bunch of exciting opportunities. Of course, people have discussed multi-region, or HTTP2 is a big one. The ability to, I don't know if it was mentioned, but auto scaling maybe in future could become a thing. There's slots there. I believe slots will be used for the kind of development and the staging environments. It's effectively the Azure setup that we would have. And in some ways, looking at what's being said here, I hope it all comes true, because I think Morten said the goal is to create the best place to host an Umbraco website. And if this does all come to be true, I can see why it might actually be. It's interesting. It's a very, very interesting time. And there's a lot of groundwork as well. We've mentioned the single sign-on. We've discussed the blob storage upgrade. All of these things happening.
We did the host name change, I think last week or this week or whatever.
That's Cloudflare DNS, but does it include the content delivery side as well if you want it?
Actually, I'm not sure. But I think I'm not sure. I shouldn't say this is where you should ask all these questions. But I mean, There are so many cool things coming.
The DNS thing we're talking about is as part of the switch to the new infrastructure, they've moved away from using the fixed DNS server that sits in front of Umbraco Cloud currently, and now using Cloudflare's DNS service, and you can just change the CNAME you point at, and it will all sort of work, which is really cool. But then, of course, Cloudflare offers a whole bunch of services like SSL termination. So the SSL certificates are all on Cloudflare now. And it would be cool to see if, maybe in the future, CDN could be an add-on or something. I'm sure.
And static site generators recently on Cloudflare as well.
Yeah, there's a whole bunch. Cloudflare's a really awesome tool.
Yeah. But that's also what is changing the whole approach to the cloud, because I think that all the weak spots which we were highlighting, a lot of developers were highlighting as a kind of why we are, or some other companies are not choosing cloud yet, are going to be addressed here, and that's really going to be something what will maybe attract more people from the already existing companies, partners, and stuff like that. So that's really pointing to the weak spots which were highlighted already in this and maybe previous years as well. So Indeed. That's really exciting.
Lots of cool stuff coming, and I mean, there's probably even more than in here that's on on at least on Morten's roadmap. Like, there's so many cool ideas and stuff like workflows that we want to support that we don't know yet exactly how to do, but yeah, there's a lot of cool stuff coming to cloud, and I think cloud is it's gonna continue to move a lot.
Good. That's really cool.
But just to the end of the episode, there were 3 blog posts from the 3 teams on Umbraco, highlighting all of the updates from documentation team from Sophie, package team from Jesper, and also the product update, of course, which we shared at the beginning of this episode. So we will refer to all of them if you want to catch up and see how the specific teams made updates. But it sounds like a really great summary of not only this time, recent time, but also the whole year. And yeah, it's great to see the future and to think about it now, because as we've said on the beginning of the episode, we want to cut off from 2020.
Forget about
thinking about 2021, and that's really amazing. Even looking on the recent circumstances and situations, it's really great to have a bright light somewhere in front of us and just go to this light and follow the path to become to maintain the best open source .NET CMS position in the Umbraco ecosystem, because that's the most exciting thing it is.
Indeed.
Cool. Anything else, guys, to add to the plans or the future?
We've already talked for a long time.
Yeah. I think we all need to have some kind of summary. I will be doing mine for sure, and some plans for the next year. Maybe as a community call to action, just shoot out your plans and ideas. Let's really make the collaborative discussions about what we can do better. And yeah, maybe your people highlights of this year and plans for the future would be great to see. Shoot out them, highlight them, mark them with Umbraco hashtag anywhere where you will be hosting them, and we will be back here in the new year.
I had 2 other things I wanted to say just before we go. Of course, we've been plugging for the past 3 weeks. We are 6 subscribers away from 600. Just subscribe. It will make my Christmas. Make 2020 better. Please subscribe. We're so close. But seriously, we've had our biggest year. Like this, we had some huge episodes this year. The block ones had nearly 600 or 700 views. It's huge. And thank you everyone to watching us each week. I said to Filip, we try to stick to 20 minutes to 20 to 30 minutes. It's never happened. I don't think we've had a single episode this year, but we've had so much to talk about, and it has been really good.
But that's lovely. That's great.
Consistency each week to do this. So thank you all.
Thank you guys. We're really happy about this show, and we really appreciate all the work that you put in. So thank you so much. It's a joy for all of us, and I mean, every Friday at HQ there's a message in our Slack channel saying now is the time to watch, and I mean, we all love this show. So thank you so much.
That's great. Yeah, we love doing it. We only do this because we enjoy it. So
Callum, we should learn from the pro YouTubers that we need to do a challenge. So, for example, if we'll hit 600 subscribers, I will change my profile photo with this hat then, or something like that.
Good idea, yeah. Good idea. If we get 100,000 likes on this video.
Yeah.
Oh, lovely bells. Yeah, 100 likes underneath this video, and I'm changing my profile photo with the to the one with the
final,
no, without joke. Let's just do it. Yeah, let's just do it, and let's
I wanted to share, and a note I wanted to end on, which is I think a really nice end to 2020, shall we say, is this. And Filip, I'm going to have to ask for your help a bit here, because I was reading an article on the BBC. It's from October, but apparently in Denmark every year you have a Danish word of the year or something, and this year the word that's been chosen is
The first word in the title, yeah. Yep.
Yeah. Samfundsin. I'm not gonna. I'm butchering that, aren't I? But it means community spirit and community, togetherness, social mindedness, and I think that's a lovely representation of Umbraco, the community this year as a whole. How everyone is kind of stuck together, and it's very apt that this would be the word of the year. So. Nice.
How to say that? This word, Filip?
Samfundsin.
That's exactly what I said.
Yes, okay. I was just saying, okay, sounds great to me. Sounds great. But yeah, that's exactly. Let's wrap it up. We've had the most difficult year ever, but we made it. Almost made it. Still half a month to go. But please, 2020, no more. Let's keep the community spirit growing. And as I said, we will be back in January with new forces, new energy, new people, new things to highlight from the Umbraco community. Keep us and everyone else busy inside of our great community here. It was a lovely year. It was great to run this umbraCoffee show for you for the whole year on every Friday. We have a break right now, so let's jump into 2021, and hopefully we'll have a lot to share on our first episode in 2021. Thank you, everyone. Thank you, Filip, for joining us today and talking us through those amazing things from this year and in the next years. High five, you rock, everyone. And see you in 2021.
Happy New Year, Merry Christmas.
Happy New Year, Merry Christmas. Enjoy the break.